Welcome to Spirit School. I'm your mentor, Danielle Sarank, also known as the Squamish Medium. In this podcast, I share honestly all I have learned about the mediumship and spiritual development journey. My intention is to normalize these conversations, to make way for a more confident, clear, and connected wave of lightworkers, serving the world of spirit with an open and joyful soul. Welcome again to Spirit School. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Spirit School. It has been a hot minute since I shared a guest with you on the podcast. There's a lot of reasons for that, but I'm excited to start getting back into doing more interviews for this podcast. And I'm bringing you today somebody who has been on the podcast before. It has been a couple years, though, and who has become a very, very close business friend of mine and a good friend, just in general, Rae Embrey. How are you, Rae?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here again today and just kind of connect in this fun way.
Yes, I'm really excited. To give more context, me and Rae met in a mastermind when I first went full time in 2020, and we got put into a mini mastermind community group together. And we have just remained friends all these years. It's been over 2 years now. We've kept in touch. Been hiring you for the past 2 years on the service that we're going to be talking about today because I want to know more about it from your lens of experience. But earlier, when I first got to know Rae's work, it was really this fascination around the animal communication and animal healing. If you go back to a podcast episode from 2 years ago, it's also on YouTube, I believe. We do have an interview from prior around her animal communication. So if that's something you're interested in looking at, definitely check that out. But what I was hoping to get Rae to talk about today was some of her other type of energy work that she does around soul alignment and business energetics. And so I just want to start by sharing what I hire Rae for each month, what I experience of it. And then we're going to start there. And I'm curious because I've never gotten to ask you this before. What happens for you when you're doing this work for me? So Rae has a beautiful offering around business energetics and healing. And because we met in a mastermind, she's been very privy to some of the areas that I struggle in my business, whether it's emotional or mental or energetically, because I serve so many different people in so many different ways. She is actually somebody who I hire monthly to do energy clearing and like energy alignment sessions around me and my business. So this is something that I do monthly with Rae. I consider it to be an act of self-care and like just energetic like cleansing in my business, and it's my favorite thing that I do every single month for myself. So I'm just going to start there, and I think we might share a couple more things that I experienced through the sessions that you do. But I'm curious for you to kind of start like where this started. Did the animal communication come first, or did the soul work come first and the business clearing? Like, how did this come and unfold for you?
Yeah, gosh, thanks. I'm so flattered. I'm sitting here just big and giddy and gritty because you're so sweet. Yeah, I started with the animal communication when I start offering this brand, Radiant Vibes. It was all animal communication because I was kind of scared to go into people. However, I've been working with people energetically since my early 20s and have just been astute to all different types of spiritual practices and healing since my teenage years because it's essentially what helped me get through my life experience and open me up to other modalities of healing and ways of working with energy and connection that traditional therapy and things just weren't helping with or getting to the root cause. They were helpful in some aspects, but not to the root cause. So when I started, I was just so fearful. And it was like animals I knew. I have lived and breathed animals my whole life. It was very easy. I didn't realize I had the gift of communication with animals. Once I started actually devoting myself to that, it became really clear that it was something that stood out. And so that was easy. It was like, okay, I'm doing this. It really became a huge foundation for my business and the growth. And then the people started saying, can you do for me what you do for my animal? Because they're just bouncing around after your sessions and I need some of that, So
Yeah.
I just started from there and I took on a couple of clients earlier on. It's been about 5 years and many of them still like you, they're long term. They work with me. They have 2 sessions a month because they're at a point now where it's just more creating more alignment and just consistently having that access to energy, clearing and healing and creating that balance in their lives. So that's how that started, and it just took off. I feel really grateful now to be doing probably it's about like 60% soul alignment, business energetics, and 40% animal communication. But the animal communication and energy healing is still for the people. It's another way of healing for the people that can't really dive into the healing in this way that like we do, where we just go really deep individually. Not everybody has the capacity to do that. So I feel like the animal work helps in a different way. It's still all about the people and the healing in that way.
Yeah. Well, and to give the audience an example of some things that me and Ray may work on when it comes to like the business side for me is around like even my membership community. I haven't talked about it too much on the podcast, but I really struggled emotionally at the beginning of launching and running my membership. You may remember all the different sessions we did around this because I was feeling out of alignment with it. I just couldn't figure out like everything about it kept like hurting my feelings or I would take things personally. And so I would be able to let Ray know what was happening that month, right? Like maybe it was 10 cancellations that made me question what I was doing and what I was bringing into the world. And so I could let Ray know, like, intimately, like, these are the things that I'm thinking about myself in this like area of my body of work. And like, I kind of just want to let it go. And can you bring some clarity around this or some energy healing around this? And you would bring me the most beautiful words. And every time I received a recording from you, I would listen to it over and over and over again. And it would just be exactly what I needed to hear. And that wasn't even the energy part. That's just like the channeled messages that you get as part of this as well. And just knowing that the energy clearing that is being done even before you turn record on and do those messages has been so helpful for me. And, Spirit School Collective is celebrating 2 years in August. And I don't think without doing that work monthly with you, because the membership has been something that has been pretty consistent over the 2 years we've been doing this, that I may not even still have it. Like you helped me out so much just with my alignment and my energy I put into that space.
Yeah, it's really interesting because when I'm in session, the words are coming through and I always connect. You do a recording every month. And so I basically connect with you prior to that. And I'm in sort of this quantum field of energy. The best way I can describe it is this whole video sort of playing out in this ethereal realm of energy and bringing a connection with you to your soul's alignment, to your spiritual guides, to universal guides, and kind of bridging this whole thing between all these different energies and bringing alignment into your physical body, right? In the sessions, what I'm able to do is see into the soul's potential. And our business has a soul too. So with the business energetics, it's like tapping into the soul of the business and bridging that gap of like, here's the soul of your business where it's really wanting to go. I can see that. I can see that ultimate potential there. And then here in our sort of 3D reality, we have emotions, we have fears, we have all of these things going on that can really feel heavy and sort of get in the way of us accessing that. And we might feel like we're on the wrong path because of these triggers that come up. And it's very vulnerable to be in these positions where we are doing these soul based businesses and you're reaching out to access to help people and put yourself out there in very unique ways that can be quite triggering to our nervous system. So the healing part really helps us relax. It's almost somatic. It gives us really relaxing experience to the body and the nervous system, and it allows us to just calm for that time. So the words end up coming through I'm not sure. It could be your guides, it could be universal energies. Sometimes there's like galactic beings out there. I'm not one of these that's like, oh, this is your specific guide. It's more of whatever is here for your highest and best interest and to connect to that ultimate soul alignment in that space. So in that the healing capacity, that's what's happening. And then from there, the words come through and they're clearing energy too. Even though it's words, it's actually transmuting energy in the body and making space and creating opening because it gives clarity. And it's like, as soon as the body feels that ease and that clarity, it can sort of open up to receiving that potential that's out there. And then that sort of gets downloaded into the body essentially. It's like, okay, this is where this is going and it helps you to just kind of move through that sort of stagnant water, the murky energy. I call it murkiness, sort of smoky waters. It's very unclear. when you listen to it over and over again, each time you're getting the healing, you're still opening up in your body and you're activating energy within you that's sort of dormant. It's all in you and you're activating that. And that's connecting you into your soul's potential and bringing that into you. I think at the end of it, it's inspiring. It creates clarity. And when we have clarity, that's how we can really manifest. And that's how we can sort of be like, oh, okay, this is what feels aligned. This is where I'm meant to go with this. And sometimes, as you know, your guides will recommend certain things, but there's always free will, they're just saying, okay, this is where we might see it right now. But at the end of the day, we all have free will.
I agree, and I love hearing the guides come through you as well because for me, like, I definitely feel like I have a very clear channel, especially to Skylar, my main guide. But I find too, it's nice to be validated in some of the messages that you get and the fact that you also get very similar messages. And just using the membership as like another example. I remember a few months ago being like, okay, I think I'm going to try doing this now, not the membership, doing something else over here. And like, kind of maybe pseudo expecting or pseudo hoping like, "Oh, Ray will, like, agree and validate my idea," even though I know my guides have put this membership in my place, and you're like, "No." Like, I really think, like, the membership's the one that you need to focus on and grow. I'm like, "Oh my god." So it's kind of like opposite of what I was, like, hoping you would say, which is also what I needed. And it's exactly the same messages I have been getting from my guides, but resisting because it's a lot of work, right? It's like a lot of work. There are a lot of other things that would be really easier in my life. And that's when I know like the messages that come through you are channeled from my guides. They're very validating based off the experiences I've also had with them. And yeah, you're right. It's like when you listen to them, it's like there's something just kind of like activated in you. You could feel the energy behind it, which is what I really like. There's a couple months ago, you said something that kept coming up after you said it over and over and over and over again. And it was so simple, but it like woke something in me when you said, like, who's holding Danielle? Like, there's no one actually like holding Danielle. Danielle holds space for all these people. And I tell you, that has come up at least 10 times since you said that a couple months ago in big ways. And it's made me actually lean into asking for more help and like leaning on the people who I do have in my life who I don't want to bother and burden and, et cetera, et cetera. So I love them. I think that they're incredible sessions.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I remember that. A lot of times I don't actually remember once I'm out of the healings. I mean, as you were sharing this with me, I'm like, right, I remember that. I remember that. Because I'm like in and I'm out,
I check in with you in pricing and stuff like that too, right?
Everything. I mean, it's like whatever's coming up. And I think that's the beauty of it, especially if you're somebody that is so loyal to this inner work. Sometimes we can get so stuck on doing so much inner work that it's like work, work, work. And we forget to just kind of flow into it because we're, more type A. We want to evolve and grow and be the best that we can as individuals. And especially, I feel like as people that really want to help and make an impact, there's even more pressure to be as aligned as you possibly can. I think the beauty in that is that we're still here to experience this very human world, and live in this evolution of emotions and kind of allow growth to be an evolution. There's no end to that, right? It's always going to go deeper. And what I love about when I work with somebody consistently in the way that you have is, I mean, I'm just so excited, every time I tap into your energy because what I've seen you be able to manifest because that's all your work, right? But I'm just a conduit or a channel here to help. I'm only like this teeny tiny portion, but when you can see how that energy clearing and it's just sort of like, I call it recoding our body. It's like rewiring our body, and when you start to see that manifest and then I get to see you have more ease in your emotional field and I start to feel that, it's like, oh, this is so cool. Like she's going now. She's like gonna rock it. Like it's just right there, and it's such a cool thing. But you still have life to experience. There's still gonna be that contrast of like really good clarity and motion forward, but we're here to experience the contrast, right? We still have to experience these emotions and we start to learn through, I think, this healing process that you can do that and you're still safe. You can have 10 people unsubscribe from your membership and it doesn't mean it's not meant to be. It's just you're still safe, right? It's not a reflection of you.
I really appreciate you saying that because I want to talk about that alignment piece a little bit with you because I've been guilty of this in the past. Spirit kept bringing this phrase to me around spiritual maturity, right? Like how much like spiritual maturity is there? Because I used to be someone, and I'm not poo pooing on her or anyone else who thinks and feels like this, but there was a day all not that long ago, maybe a couple years ago, where I would have taken that as I'm out of alignment and it's time to move on and try something else. When I can stand here today saying, I'm so glad I have persevered everything that has come up and chose that first spark, that first inspiration was actually the one to follow. And just because things get hard doesn't mean I'm not in alignment anymore. So alignment comes up a lot in your work and a lot in this conversation already. So like, what do you have to say around alignment? And are there any kind of misconceptions out there? Because it can be kind of like a buzzy word. What do you have to say around alignment?
I could say a lot about that actually. That's I feel that, because when we really started to tap into this law of attraction, when it really started to become so profound, it's been around forever, but really over the last couple of decades, the last decade, and for sure, it's this feeling of, oh, it should all just flow so perfectly. And there is truth to that. There is flow, but we can get into this high expectational energy where we think, okay, this happened. So therefore, it just isn't aligned. And we'll just push away anything because there was a little bit of a gap there, right? That we had to sort of tweak. And a lot of the times, it's that initial insight. It's like when you got that spark for the membership community and you had that spark, it was there. And then you put it out there to the masses. It took off, it did. But then it wasn't feeling aligned how you were doing it in your body, right? It was feeling weighed down. It was feeling heavy. But a lot of that had to come up because it was asking you to reflect on where you were at emotionally in your internal world, your value, your sense of self, your esteem. Sometimes those things come up to kind of help us heal, to show us where there's more to heal around, right? And it doesn't mean you're off of that path. What I always say is once we deal with the emotional stuff that's coming up around it, then we can say, all right, what needs tweaked? Or is this even something I should be doing anymore? But it's not until you can really cope and deal with what is reflecting back to you emotionally, then from there, making a decision about, is this really for me anymore? And sometimes it may not be, but a lot of the times things just need tweaked. It's like a relationship. It's like being in a relationship with somebody. It doesn't mean because you have one argument that it's done. There just might need to be tweaking, little things, little minor adjustments. And I feel like that's what you went through the membership community was the tweaking. One of the things you said, it was a lot of work. I wrote it down as you said that because I'm so guilty of this. As soon as I get in my head, oh, that's going to be a lot of work. I have been a workhorse all my life and I've got this sort of really nice ease in my world right now. That can be really triggering for me, but it's a story, right? And then you can make your membership community not a lot of work. And that's some of the things that you've adjusted and worked around where it's still effort, but you're doing it in a way that's more aligned for you now, which is great. And so that's the alignment piece, but you have to work through the emotional stuff. You have to go, like people call it the shadow, and you have to go to that shadowy part and deal with that. And then I feel like that's where the energy healing helps so much because we can process logically, but our body still will hold on to these deeper feelings and sensations because the body just wants to feel safe. So we have to do the energy clearing and healing so that our body will feel safe in this new space, and then that's when you get more alignment.
So I think that this is something I kind of talked about in the spirit messages this month is like around how unwilling we are to sit in discomfort. We try to pacify and fix. And so I could imagine that people who are really trying to find alignment in their life and get to a place of alignment, what do you say to somebody who has been sitting in that stickiness for a while and may like want to give up and not persevere? Because in truth, there could be no alignment without misalignment, right? Like there's always going to be that shadow quality. But is there like something somebody could look for that they will know I'm out of alignment? Is there something telltale that's like obvious?
Well, I mean, I think the most obvious is when you're just stuck in a negative headspace for a very long time. Sometimes when people start working with me, they're just feeling like nothing else is working. I've got to be honest with somebody. I'm okay on the outside, but inside I am struggling. And, they're feeling a lot of shame, a lot of lack of worth, and not able to figure out a way to really cope and deal with that to feel good on the inside. So I'd say when you're not feeling good on the inside, but your outside world might look okay, you can shift that. It's never too late. If I did it with what I've been through, I always say anybody can. And it's not like I'm sitting here as some perfectly aligned person. I work at this every day. There's not a day that I don't tune in to my inner world. How's Ray feeling? What's going on with Ray? Sometimes I want to busy myself and numb myself out and not want to deal with that because that's easier, right? But what I found for me and what I find with people that work with me over time is they start to realize, oh my God, it's actually not that hard. It's not that difficult to sit in this discomfort and just to notice what's going on and to tap in. What am I feeling? Most people don't even know. Like feelings were a foreign word for me. It was like, what? It was overwhelming to me at
Yeah.
first, you know? And then you start to realize it's actually not that horrible. You're not going to die by allowing yourself to feel this discomfort, crying for an hour or two or three, or being in grief. These are natural things that we're meant to experience here on earth. But I think there's just been such a avoidance over time, you know, generationally. And now we're into this time where it's feeling like, okay, yes, this is where things are shifting, where it's much more safer to do that because we have these different tools and stuff. And so I feel like that's the number one thing is if your inner world, you're sitting there and you have great things happening, or maybe you don't have great things, or maybe you do, but you don't even see it as that, right? And you've been able to manifest a pretty good world, but yet you could feel so much more peace. And I think a lot of us are really addicted to chaos. We don't know what it's like to have calm. Our nervous system actually will freak out when there's calm. We will find things to take us out of that calmness because we're on that overloaded energy, you know?
I've seen that actually a lot with clients where their baseline is chaos. Like that's literally the baseline of their life that they retreat to back to safety. I have that in a couple areas of my life with finances more than anything. Where it's like I'm like, if things are too settled, I need to like rack up a credit card or something to like
That's
come
such
back
a good
home.
example, though. It's like a perfect example. It's so simple. But yeah, we will literally create something to make it chaotic. You know, I'm guilty of certain areas in my life too. And we all will have our vice. We'll all have our fallback. The idea is to be aware of it and to know when that's running the show and to not let it take over and just to sit back and just allow yourself to experience that little bit of peace and calm gradually. And honestly, I feel like most people in the world that we operate in, a natural baseline is somewhat chaos. You know, there's so much pressure, especially in like our culture and our society and stuff. We have to be really on. We have to work so hard to get it. It's just all these things, and they kind of make us be in this sort of operating at a low level of chaos that we don't actually realize. And then that over time, it just creates health problems. It creates emotional issues, which also create health issues. That's another thing. If you're sitting in a lot of health issues, you're not in alignment. It doesn't mean you could get rid of every single health issue, you know, but you can have peace in it. You can learn how to work with that and still have harmony and peace in your world. I've worked with people that are end of life, you know, cancer, and they will find it. And even people surviving that, you know, they're still in this scared. Am I going to have a relapse? Am I going to get sick again? Is this going to happen? You know, and it's finding a way to have peace around all of that, you know, and I think that's where I don't really have the capacity to know that myself, but that's where I think the gift of being a channel and receiving that download and that insight from this other realm of energy is so beneficial because I wouldn't know that myself, right? But it comes through and then that helps people, you know, it's for them.
And do you find too, like a lot of the information that you're passing on is also for you and like heals you at the same time? That's what I love about this work,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I'm kind of on the struggle train myself, if I'm not feeling 100% or maybe going through something in my own world emotionally, it's hard for me, you know, unless I'm like really knocked down, drag out sick. The healings are great because they move through my body too. Right. And so I always feel so good when I'm done. Sometimes it might be a little hard to get started because of where I'm at. And it's like, okay, I've got to really detach and be in this very clear space because I don't want to project anything that I'm going through onto anybody. You have to be really, really clear and intentional with that. That's why meditation is so important to me. It's not for everybody. And I actually am not one of these that's like, you have to meditate all the time. For me, though, because that's how I'm receiving my energy healing and my clearing is through that space and kind of connecting into that own realm. And it helps me get grounded and really reset. If we did all take time to do that each day, we're actually creating our own sense of energy healing. And especially when you get into the visualizing and people think that's often just imagined stuff. It's imagination. It's not real. It's actually really real. The beauty about your body is it doesn't know the difference between imagined and real. So you can imagine health and imagine yourself in these spaces. If you want to be like a big, well known speaker, you can literally create that experience for you and start to put your body in that space to feel that. So then it wouldn't be so overwhelming, right? It's like, oh, I really want to do that, but how in the hell am I going to do that? How am I ever going to get to that space? That's so scary. And you think about the nerves, and you can actually create that experience for your body because it doesn't know the difference between real or imagined.
I recognize that in my public speaking training and all the years I had a stage fright. I completely recognize that. So there's a couple of things that were coming to me as you were talking around that. One is around like, how do you know it works? Like, how do you know that the soul alignment sessions work? Because I can tell you what I experienced as a client, but I'm also wondering, maybe I'll share my experience first. Okay. And then I'd be curious to know from other clients how they say that they experience it as well. So I will message you with the things that have happened that month. Like maybe, there was a container closing and I just needed to get my energy back from giving away so much at that time, or my pricing or on my membership or whatever. What happens is when you give me my recording back and I listen to it twice right away, and then I will listen to it a couple days later because you hear something new every single time. And again, you get to feel that energy. What I notice is by the next time I go to write out my things for you, the month has just happened, is the things that happened the month before, I don't think about anymore. It's like they're not in my peripheral. It's like I've moved beyond them, I suppose. They're no longer a thing in my life. That's what I personally experienced, and that's how I know it's worked. Looking in hindsight where it's like, wow, like that used to really bother me and that doesn't bother me so much anymore. Now I'm on to something else. So that's kind of cool to me. I think that that's like magical in its own way, but I'm also somebody who's very self-aware. So I'm curious to know what your other clients have to say around it too.
Yeah, I feel like everybody's so different. And because you've been doing this inner work for so long, you move through energy quick. There's no right or wrong, right? Everybody moves at their own pace energetically. So you are a person that I work with every month. I'm like, okay, I know it's going to be a whole new experience. Even though sometimes they'll be like, Ray, I'm sure you're tired of me sending this in another form. It's still a different form. It's still a different layer, right? And then there's people who are just really getting started on this journey. So, I mean, they're not even aware of shame and what that means or how that expresses itself. So, depending on where somebody is, first, sometimes it can be like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. And then as they start to just kind of sit in it a little bit more, because they do one-to-one sessions too, they're not all through recording. So
Mhm.
usually when I first start working with somebody, it's one-to-one. We're doing a lot of speaking together, sharing, working energetically that way, and then doing energy healing together because they have to process, externally process too. And as the body releases through words as we speak, we actually start to transmute energy too. They feel the shifts energetically, and I can then start even going deeper with them. So initially, it can be a lot. The beautiful thing that I love about it is that our guides, and when I'm in this energy realm, I always know when enough is enough. It's like, okay, this is where the stopping point is today, because you never want to do too much where you just feel so overloaded. Oh my gosh, I've got to look at shame and body dysmorphia. And you hear all this premise of you really shouldn't do your purpose based on external validation. But I mean, come on, you have to know at some point that it works. And had I not gotten so much feedback constantly over the year from people and really seeing people turn their lives around, I mean, coming out of extremely abusive, narcissistic relationships, moving forward, finding like the love of their life. And I mean, I've been to clients' weddings. It's really cool. It's just so neat to experience that from the side and see them start to elevate consciously and just get into such a high vibrational state that even though there might be other stuff that comes up in life, it's like I've got this. They'll still reach out like you do to help calibrate that energetically in their world and such. I feel like it's just like an elevation each time. When you get through the really dark, heavier stuff and it's waking you up, and then it just gets lighter and easier. And sometimes we are going to have times where I always say we have so many spiritual awakenings. There's not just one we go through. It's a really generic term, but then we'll have times where we need more. We're asked to go into some deeper, shadowy stuff again. When that will happen, they'll get easier in time, shorter, quicker. I hope that answered your question, but people just say they just get lighter and lighter. And it's like the tough stuff, that contrast, that really hard stuff that we have to experience in life, even things like grief that are really, really heavy. And it's like they can be there in that experience, but still be able to tap into joy in those times. I still have this going in my life too. I hope that makes sense.
It totally makes sense to me. So you're going to be our guest mentor this month in the Spirit School Collective. So I want to reserve some things for that space for those students because that's where I want to get into a lot of the how, right? Like how do you do what you do? And I want you to try to like train, show, like talk with us as a community around this because I'm so curious about nothing I do is similar to you, right? So I'm always like,
It's really different.
it's really different. And so it's like I'm just dying to get into the brain of other light workers and be like, how? So we're gonna do that in the collective on the 17th. But I would like to share with the Spirit School listeners the who. So it's like, who is supporting Ray in these healings? Like, who do you recognize to be the ones around you? How does it happen for you when you're doing your work? And are you really aware of them?
As far as like who am I connecting with and the
Yeah, like who's helping you with all the healing and stuff all around you?
it's always different, and it depends on the type of session. Like, if it's an end of life session with an animal, I'll connect with a lot of angelic beings. With people, I usually see some pretty core guides. I'm not, again, one of these that's like, "Okay, this is the name," because what I hear from our guides is like, "You can call me whatever. You just need to know I'm here," So I
Yeah.
can very clear descriptors, and I'm better at that than names. Sometimes a really clear name will come through. Sometimes, depending on what somebody's working with, there can be goddesses or other deities like that. I've connected a lot with Durga, which might sound really a little bit out there and different, but she's pretty amazing. Her energy is really, really uplifting. And she kind of works with me personally too sometimes. I will also connect with loved ones. I don't label myself as a medium, but obviously I work with animals in spirit, and people in spirit are our guides at times. So when they're coming through as a really high vibrational energy, I'll feel that. And that's when I'm like, okay, this person, your grandfather, they're here. I can see this so clearly. They're a guide for you. A lot of the times there's just a lot of energy moving. So I see it in colors that the body's craving because colors hold frequency. So I'm kind of bringing alignment into each of our energy centers, which some people call chakras. I see energy centers, but I refer to as chakras because that's sort of the more normal term. I'll see meridians in the body, just clearing out. Sometimes I'll see even like galactic, I don't know who they are. I wouldn't even know it until connecting with other healers. And I'm like, oh, you see that too? And they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I connect with that. That's cool. Even our animals in spirit will come through sometimes with really, really amazing messages. I'm not one that limits anything. I feel like there's infinite potentials and infinite possibilities. Like there's nothing that we couldn't work through, heal through, whatever it is, whether it's relationship stuff. I work with some couples, the husband and wife team, and then all their animals. It's like
Yeah.
so cool. I think whoever comes through, it just depends very much on the person, where they're at in their journey, what they're ready to receive energetically, if that makes sense.
I get some wild DMs, right? Like I get some wild ones coming through. I won't share specifics because I want to honor people's privacy and stuff like that. The language on your website and the language in which you share this work definitely doesn't, I wouldn't imagine tracked people like this, but do you ever get people who are like, should I quit my job? Tell me where to live. Tell me what career I should follow. Like, is this a type of work that can get you clarity there? I personally don't like doing readings like that. So I don't do them. But I'm curious about you. Does that come up in your work?
Yeah, it does. I think a lot of the times people, when they find me, they're just sort of feeling misaligned in different areas of their life, usually one more than the other, some multiple areas. So it may not necessarily be, should I quit my job? But it's this feeling of feeling a little empty. There's just not feeling really joy in their lives and around different things, whether it's relationship stuff. It can even be like working with feminine, masculine energies, which we've talked a lot about and stuff, and how that plays out within each of us. If somebody does come to me like that, I always say, I am not a psychic. I am really intuitive. Yes, I can see a lot of potentials, but again, I see potential. It doesn't mean that person is going to get there in this lifetime, right? I see the ultimate, like, this is like the exciting part. It's really up to the person and where they're at. I'm not here to predict your life. I can tell you where I can see things moving to, but we always have free will. It doesn't mean we're wrong because we don't lean into that, right? Like, we're still here living the journey and we're exactly where we're meant to be at every given moment. It's just how quickly we move through things. So if you wanna really get there? I'm like, I can tell you. I can really tell you intuitively, and I can psychically tell you, yes, this is what I see. This is how I feel at this given moment, this relationship is and your energy, but it's all based on where I see it and their energy.
Yeah.
But, if they really want to get to that place of inner alignment, that soul aligned place, whether it's in the business or within themselves, there's a lot of inner work that has to be done to get there.
You're a person of great depth, right? And I think like maybe you wouldn't attract that as much. I think over the years I've been like really getting my depth too because I'm like 9 years into this development path and like some interest in it before, but I know that you've been really ingrained in this work for a long time and you can tell just by the depth in which you share your work. I have to give a plug too to your I didn't sign up for it last month because I forgot and I missed it. But you do these monthly group healings and forecasts as well, and they're incredibly powerful too. Are you planning on still doing those every month?
So again, that's like a one of these it's not off the table, but it's tweaking, right? So and this is something I have to do. I have to sit down. What feels really good? Where's the opening? And right now I'm really being called and guided to actually launch my own podcast video series. So my energy and focus over the next month is going to be in that. And then I do a lot of mentoring for intuitive based business and animal communication. So it's helping people evolve and grow in that and then ultimately carry that out. So stepping in more into this teaching role, I do so many one-to-ones and and there's been a shift in there where it's like, okay, let's step here. And that's a little fearful for me. I have a huge vulnerability around sharing publicly and opening up, which most people would see my content and they're like, you're very grounded and practical, but I have to really center myself for this. That's my sort of weakness, right? And so it's time for that. And then the membership is coming probably more like August timeframe. I'm going to launch a couple group programs and working with more soul alignment. And seems like everybody really wants that group animal communication program. So that'll come up too. And that's where I'll be kind of focusing the next couple months. The membership's coming. Again, like you, that word, oh, it's a lot of work. And so as soon as I get that feeling, I start to go back. But I feel that I've found some ways that I can do that without it feeling like so much work. And because one of my core values is freedom, freedom is huge for me. And so as soon as I start to feel restricted, I've got 5 planets in Aquarius. Freedom's huge. It's
Well,
like-
that's a place I haven't even touched on yet because I'm like, I don't want to overwhelm my audience, but she's an astrologer too. She does so many things. And sometimes in my healing sections, you will get the sense I need to look at your chart because you'll recognize that my pattern, the way that I'm thinking, the way that I'm processing something is actually related to Saturn or
Sure.
like, Pluto or one of those really tough teacher type planets, right?
It is, and the astrology is great because I look at the transits and I look at the energy of the transits. I'm not just looking at your sun, moon, anything like that. I'm looking at what's going on. So if I just get the feeling this is an energy that you're moving through right now, it's so helpful because we know, okay, I'm right where I need to be. And this is why this is coming up. And it's temporary, right? You'll feel that relief and that release. I combine all of those things. And I even do that with the business. So with the business energetics, I will use astrology of the business. I look at the chart of the business, if people have it, they know when they got their LLC or incorporated. I will actually look at things for that time frame and be able to use that to help you calibrate energy into that as well. So yeah, it's a very good collaborative of a lot of different things that has just evolved and grown and morphed. And I love it.
Yeah. Well, and really, it is a lot of different tools that you've gathered over the years. But the real simplicity behind what your mission is in doing this is to get people feeling in alignment. And so I can imagine like being in alignment would make it easier to make decisions, like more clarity on the things that you want to try to like manifest in your life. We're very aware of the things we don't want. Maybe this is a way to get us clear onto what we do want. Are there any other benefits that you kind of see to like being in alignment?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me in my personal journey, I feel I'm at a place in my life that it's like, okay, I've got that balance, right? But it took me a long time to get there. And we often don't realize how much family dynamics play a role in things. Maybe there's just a energy within like your father or your mother that is playing itself out and you don't realize it as a person until something outside comes in and is like, this is what's here. Let's kind of get to the core of this. There can be that in what you're moving through personally. And usually that's all reflecting back to where you're at on your level of worthiness, your level of how you feel about yourself. And these things will come up and continue to come up until you get to a space that you know your worth, you know your value, you know what feels good to you, and you can honor that because then that's how you get clarity. You know what you value, you know what means a lot to you. You also know that it's not healthy to be around chaotic, codependent patterns in your life. And most people don't even realize how much they're operating in codependent patterns. They think it just has to do with like drug and alcohol. And that's not true. There's so many different layers of that. And so I feel like, being able to clear and move through those and work through that in a very graceful, delicate way where you're not beating yourself up and you're just understanding that I'm learning through this and I will get to this place of peace. That's where I feel that alignment really comes from. It's not about like being free from those things. It's about moving through them enough that you have the emotional intelligence to know what's going on, the awareness when you're dropping back into those patterns because they're comfortable. And every step that you evolve and grow as you go to that next level, those things will come back up in another form. We usually have 3 to 5 core patterns that we're sort of here in this lifetime evolving through as a soul. So
Yeah.
our body's just a vessel for the soul to be here to experience. We can detach and look at it from that way. It really helps us look at it through a lens that is not so paramount. It's like, "Oh, it's not the end of the world," you know? Like,
Yes.
I don't
Yes, yes, yes. I totally get that. I have so enjoyed this conversation. I can't believe how quick time has gone by.
it always does with you. It's like, we'll just
It's like a vortex. I'm like, "Holy crap, we've already been talking for like 45 minutes." So to kind of like wrap this up because you're going to be continuing this conversation in the collective later this month. This is where I want to talk about like the how and all that fun stuff for the students who are developing their own abilities and stuff. But you're my self-care. Like when I look at how much space I hold for hundreds of people every single month, and I get asked this question a lot where people are like, well, how do you not get like energetically taxed? And how do you manage your energy? And it's Rae, like Rae helps me with my energetic boundaries, my energetic clearings, so that I can start every month really fresh, being able to hold space for the next round of people or continue to hold space for the same amount of people. So, like, you are one of my biggest assets when it comes to my self care, like in my life and in my business. So, I would love for you to kind of close us off today by just maybe talking about a couple of things you do for your own self care, because it's not light work that we do, Ray.
it's not. You always make me feel so good. I'm like, you're so sweet. I love it. Thank you for telling me that and sharing that with your community too. It really means a lot to me. And I don't take this lightly. And when people share feedback with me like that, it really means a lot to me. It's just not something I take for granted at all. So for me, I am a nature girl. I have to get out in nature every single day, rain or shine, cold, snow. I'm not in, freezing Canadian temperatures. I moved to Northwest Arkansas 2 years ago and we have so much natural beauty here. And so it's been very healing for me to experience this land and the people here and the energies here. My dogs, I have 4 dogs that I love. We go out all the time. I mountain bike. I'm a very physical person, and which is again, knowing your own energy for me. Like I need something very physical at least once or twice a week. That totally shuts off my mind because I am a thinker. I can just get really into overthinking, right? And that shuts off everything because all my senses have to be on when I'm out there biking on the trail. So hiking, biking, I do actually eat really healthy. I think that's huge. And You've got to know what works for your body energetically and feel good about that. And I meditate. I have really great friends that, I love the healing work, but I have to be brought into humanity. So I love being around my good girlfriends. I have guy friends. I love being in the normal world too. So I feel like that's a healthy thing to experience, is that balance of being in all of this depth and this spiritual stuff, but sometimes being able to detach and just be light and really enjoy the simplicity. So those are things, that I do. And I actually do get my own energy healings as well, which are very huge for me. It's taken me a while to find somebody, but through your recommendation, I found somebody that works really well. Those are some things that I do.
I love it. Luna, my pup, she is definitely a grounding force for me without a doubt. So if you have 4,
Yes,
like,
two of them are seniors now too. They're 14 and a half and almost 14. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's just, and there's still so much joy. And I think because of them being connected to me through this work, they're just so happy in their senior years. And like Rhythm's pretty well blind, but she just still finds me. So
just feeling it the auras.
yeah, and I'm one of those people. I'll go to the field and roll around on the ground with them. I love being a child and feeling that youthfulness in my heart. And those are things that I feel so many of us don't get to experience or allow ourselves to experience it because we feel like it's stupid or dumb. But going out and catching a meteor shower, our earth is beautiful
Yeah.
and so much healing energy just by going and sitting in a rock in nature, just sitting there and letting that rock ground us, letting it hold us and letting the earth hold us, I feel like is something that is often missed.
Yeah. I appreciate that. So, how can people follow you? How can people book with you? If you want to drop your website and your Instagram, I think you're mostly on.
Yeah, Instagram. I do have a Facebook page because I have an old community there as well. But you can find me on Instagram and my website, radiantvibes.com. And it's RAE, radiantvibes.com. And yeah, I'm always connecting. I love collaborating with people. And you can book appointments right through the website or through my Instagram page there. And get on my newsletter list and see what's coming up because I've got lots of fun things coming up that I'm really excited about. For once, it's like I've been sort of sitting in the one-to-ones for a while and I love them, but it's like, okay, I'm getting really excited.
Yeah.
And
Getting into the group stuff. I appreciate that. And we'll have links to her website in the show notes too. So you can just click on it and head on over and give her a follow. And yes, I have your newsletter. That's how I find out about your monthly energy things. And I'm like, I need to get in this. I love them so much. So
thank you.
thank you, Ray. Thank you so much
Thank-
for coming to Spirit School.
yes, thank you for having me. This was lovely.
Did you know that Spirit School is not just a podcast? It's an actual school. If you go to myspiritschool.com, you can invest in self-study courses, live programs, and of course the Spirit School Collective, my baby, my monthly membership community. All Spirit School offerings are intended to get you feeling clear, confident, and connected to your spiritual path, your development journey, and of course, connected to other spiritual curious souls who are having similar experiences to you. I hope to see you in Spirit School.